Hi, welcome to Real People. I'm Stephanie Allensworth. My guest today is Pete Cairns. He is a yoga practitioner and a body worker. Welcome, Pete.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Now, tell us a little bit about your practice. Let's start with the yoga.
Yeah, well, that's honestly how a lot of this began for me. I've been practicing yoga since 2013. It became something that I started to do as a full-time livelihood, my God-given path. In 2015, I began to study bodywork, different forms of manual therapy too. So I teach both of these things in tandem, the yoga instruction, and then I do the bodywork as well. So for the yoga aspect, that was something that I naturally felt magnetized to explore. I've always been very fascinated with consciousness mechanics, different forms of meditation. I remember as a little child laying in bed at night trying to decipher the mind path of how to get to the dreamland, you know.
Oh,
And so
wow.
studying these things in my early 20s, I'm 36 now, just was really, I don't know, inspiring to me. And I knew that yoga had something to do with meditation. I was exploring different forms of movement in my early 20s as I was dealing with healing different diseases, and I never really had a movement practice. I never felt too drawn to organically work out or lift weights or anything like that. And the aspect of the postures within yoga really seemed to touch on these organic movements that I would find myself doing inherently anyway. And so this was a full system of me to explore consciousness mechanics, movement, and different ways of being more unified in my heart and my body.
And then you are now sharing it with other people.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Do you have a big practice? Do you have a lot of people working with you?
You know, it's been small, which I like. I
Okay.
like intimate associations, and this does not mean that I don't teach many classes. I've taught at many different studios around the Twin Cities in tandem with doing my private practice in different homes and workplaces of my clients. Some of the classes have had upwards of 100 people attend. The ones right now I'm teaching are very intimate, maybe a handful of people show up, and I like both. I think
Yeah.
there's something very unique about being present with who shows up and then what we
Right.
can create together and move together. So
Yeah. I've tried a little yoga in the past, but I was in between. I had a back surgery, which I, wished I knew then what I know today, and it screwed me up. So I couldn't hardly move. I couldn't even sit at a 90-degree angle, and I was trying yoga but the class was moving so fast that I'd be like 3 moves behind, just doing the sun salutation. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and then at the end, I'm like, could somebody help me up, please? Because I
Right.
couldn't get up off
Yeah.
the floor. So that's my experience with yoga. But I know that it's a godsend. It really is. I know that the people that do it, I still don't do yoga. I don't work out. I don't.
In your own way, I'm sure you
Yeah.
do yoga, because again, it's a lot more than just the postures. And as I integrate a holistic unification of this practice, just mindfulness in my life, I'm seeing so much more now that it's about how I'm cognitively handling the postures of life. And it's not just necessarily going to a class with your Lululemon yoga pants on, right? Doing down dog on a sticky mat, trying to find your way out of a posture, There's
And without falling over.
and sometimes it's just like, how can you be patient in 5 more minutes with the situation? How can you handle cognitively your nervous system, your body, and maybe in those really trying postures of life, And that's
Wow.
really what it's kind of
Yeah.
become for me. And don't get me wrong, I love the physical aspect. It's been incredibly healing to liberate restriction in my physical body through this system of movement, but that's not all it has to be,
Right. So speaking of the limitations of the physical body, so people that are recovering like I was from some serious accident or surgery, do you get people like that in your workouts and
Most
your
of the people I
classes?
work with have serious injury, and I also come from my own health dis-ease and my own background, and a lot of my movement practice is how can I listen to where people are at in real time in that moment with what we're doing, and then what can we do to explore all of these different ways to create mobility that's supported with strength in your own body uniquely. And so I don't do sun salutations in my practice. There's a lot of props I use. We do a lot of floor work. We do a lot of really functional movement that might not be these classical yoga postures, but then how can we tie that into the classical postures of yoga, the classical consciousness mechanics of yoga?
The consciousness is probably just as important, I would say, as the movements are. And you're right. I don't think they have to all be, what's in the book.
Right.
How to,
or on Instagram.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Look it up on YouTube. How to do this and that. I've never been a very flexible person my entire life, but I've always been a tom girl. So rough and rowdy, grew up with a bunch of boys, climbing trees, jumping off things, harsh on my body at a young age. Fell down stairs with my bicycle, tumbled, had whiplash from it. And I'm amazed that I'm sitting here today talking to you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I mean, we don't have to be flexible or hypermobile to practice these postures of the yoga. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why I do it, is to regain a quality of mobility in my body where I was really stuck. And I actually find myself now practicing postures when I'm injured. And that's usually when my yoga practice picks up, because I can find what shape and then what action neutralizes that sensation of pain. And that feels incredibly alleviating, especially, again, when you are constantly aware of a sensation is off in your body. Well, what can you do to just feel better, to feel more grounded, to feel more comfortable, to feel more at ease in your body,
Yeah. Well, without getting on the floor and doing anything, I still have this thing that bugs me. I used to be able to sit, Indian style, and it never bothered my legs before. But now, if I try to do that, I lose. They start to fall asleep, and it starts to hurt, and then I can't get up.
Yeah.
And it's not, I've been looked at. It's not my system. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's nerves or what. So what would you recommend for me to try to fix that condition? Because I'd love to meditate like that. I just can't get my legs like that.
Absolutely. Well, I think first and foremost, regardless of the modifications, whatever tools you might be using to sit comfortably, well, what are you doing in that seat? And for me, it's as simple as from the center of my pelvis, I'm pushing down through my sit bones. That is a focus action that you can continue to draw your consciousness to, no matter the sensations that are coming up, because those sensations of discomfort are going to come up, whether it's in your body or your mind. Maybe your mind is, oh, I'm thinking about what I'm going to have to eat later, or something other than literally what are you doing with your body right here, right now. Posture-wise, sometimes it helps to actually have your seat higher than your knees. So maybe you have a few blankets folded up underneath your sit bones, so your knees are actually below them. This might open up some of the tension, integrity, restrictions that you could be feeling in your pelvis. This might help with blood flow, just like really simple functional things. And then once that's in place, once your alignment is reconfigured, well, then you go back to that focused action of, oh, I'm continuing to push my seat down to create that verticality in my spine. And then things just begin to shift. What opens up as you sit with that, as you're present with those feelings, as you breathe into that action, into the shape, into the mind stuffs that come up. I mean, that's just...
The monkey mind is
the
a
monkey
problem
mind,
as well.
seriously, and I don't think that ever ends, Hence me saying, sometimes I think the most advanced yoga pose is how can you be mindful in 5 minutes of traffic,
Yeah, I just started reading a book by, Silva, but I can't think of his first name now, talking about how to get into meditation quickly, get to alpha. And it was...
Mastermind. I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, Juan knows.
That sounds
Is
familiar
it
too. Yeah, I think I had like some CDs.
Juan L. or Lee Silva?
Silva, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I just came across some information about him, and I bought the book and started reading it because I got like stacks of books all over my bedroom.
Yeah, me too.
It's like,
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I started reading the book, and it put me into a meditation mode. It's like all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I'm really relaxed.
Wow, money well spent, right?
Right?
Just
Like,
like
I don't
that.
need to read anymore. Chapter 1 is done. I'm just kidding about that. I'll read the whole thing. But yeah, so it was really interesting how you can control your mind because that monkey mind sometimes can keep me awake all night long, and then songs will start looping in my head,
Right.
and stupid commercials jingles, it's like, stop. How do you make it stop? And he said, close your eyes, put your eyes behind your lids at a 45-degree angle and count backwards from 100, taking a couple seconds in between each number. And I actually, when I was reading the book, I did that, and I only did it for 10 seconds, and I'm like, I can see how that would work like a charm.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic action mechanism.
Yeah.
That's an aspect of yoga called tantra, which is mechanism. Any action or mechanism can get you towards that state if you just apply focus and a will to see it through. Just like what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
Works.
Yeah, well, I mean, there had been times when I would try to get creative and, before I read this book, right? Count backwards from 100 by sevens, like using an odd number. But I think it actually woke my mind up more.
No,
So,
right. You're really trying to intellectualize that then.
It's like I had to go completely left brain to do that, So it wasn't working for me. I'm like, okay, how many sheep can I do now? And yeah, so I'm going to definitely keep trying this. And I actually did it this morning. So, but I think I slip into alpha a lot, just automatically, without even knowing it. And now I'm starting to recognize it when it happens.
Yeah.
And so I think that's pretty cool. And how does that mix in with your practices, your body work, and your yoga techniques, and your
absolutely.
thoughtfulness?
So many different ways. I mean, what you're basically telling me is you're almost repatterning the way that you're handling your life by applying this focused practice of sorts. For the yoga practice and then the body work too, I personally have found more benefit by using a functional amount of effort for a longer period of time. And what this gets me is sustained results. So what this can translate to is in the yoga practice, maybe it's that functional seated posture with your modification, with something under your seat so your knees are below your hips. Maybe instead of 5 minutes, you stay there for 7 minutes. And the longer you stay there, well, that tension, integrity, restriction in your pelvis is going to start to actually stay open even after you stand up. So by the next time you get there, you're like, well, hey, 7 minutes is no big deal. Maybe we can try 10 minutes. But it has to start very functionally. And I think about it as holding a piece of paper, your pen or your pencil. I think that's an appropriate amount of force and effort and tension to apply in order to engage certain qualities of tension within your body, certain structures in your body. Again, if your goal is to have a sustained response where it's just like, oh, I just am now operating in an alpha. Well, you began operating in this different consciousness mechanics by holding that resonance internally in a very practical, easy way. There has to be that quality of ease. Otherwise, if it's too heavy, you're probably going to get fatigued and drop it, and then you might be discouraged, and you might not want to go back to that practice, no matter what it is. With the body work, I found, for instance, in a functional way, because I treat a lot of scar tissue. There's many different ways of going about that, but I actually like to maintain just gentle contact with that restriction, with that scar in the body, and just hold that, follow it where it goes. And sometimes I can be doing this for upwards of 5 to 20 minutes, but it's not aggressive. I'm not trying to...
Are you on your own body or
on
on
my
your
own body,
clients?
on clients,
Okay.
wherever. We all have restrictions. We all have scar tissue in our body, but is it causing an issue? Is it is it causing a sensation of, oh, I'm aware of something that's uncomfortable now. I'm not at ease in this area, you know. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
but like I was saying, I think it's, if you can make it easy enough where you can sustain your practice for a longer period of time, you're actually going to get a longer lasting result to where that's kind of the new normal. I don't like saying that, but that kind of is what happens.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
operating from
You're
alpha resonance.
resetting your body,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, and mine could use a major reset.
Who can't? Who wouldn't, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I have tried many different things. I look at myself as a bit of a sampler. You know, I like to try different things and see. You know, sometimes I might do one thing longer than something else.
Right.
You know, I lose interest in it right away, or you know, other practices and such. But I am a life learner, so I want to keep learning, and I want to keep digesting information and finding new ways that I can help me be a better person and operate from a better place so that I can be more of service to others.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Also relatable for myself as well.
Yeah,
Always learning, an infinite
Yeah.
scholar of sorts.
Yeah, all kinds. I mean, the things that I read, people might go through my book list and go, "Are you nuts?" But you know, everything has a purpose, and if I'm drawn to it, then I'm not going to discard it. You know,
Yeah,
I'm
there's
gonna read it
something
because there's something
of
there
curiosity,
for me.
right? That's
There's
drawing
something
you
there
to
for
that
me,
and
right?
to explore,
So there's something
right?
I'm supposed to find out from reading this, whether it's about myself or about humanity. You know?
Yeah.
So, or somebody's particular point of view.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah. So let's talk a bit more about the bodywork portion of this, okay? So is it just all yoga poses, or are you doing massage?
What is body work, right? Because that's
it-
a general term. Most
it
people
is,
hear that and they're
yeah.
like, they've been working with me for years and they're talking about me, but they're like, they have no idea what to call me. And so it's just easier for me to say body work. So to me, body work is any sort of manual therapy, any sort of soft tissue manipulation.
Yeah.
This can translate into massage, movement physical therapy. For me, the body work is, well, what am I literally changing texture-wise with my hands? And with the yoga, I don't give too many manual corrections. I think it's more important to help people retrain their nervous system and how their nervous system holds their muscles by giving them direct actions to focus on themselves. The body work is more of my own manual correction in relation to what I'm working with. And like I indicated, the scar tissue is something that I try to focus on. It's very corporeal, it's very mundane. Everyone has scar tissue in their body that is restricting something. And so if we can focus on that with many different systems of manual therapy with my hands, whether it's massage therapy, manual lymph drainage, craniosacral, shiatsu, all of these different systems of touch therapy can begin to address some sort of a longer term regulation.
Yeah, I am a big fan of body work. I after that car accident and the surgery, I lived on massage therapy.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it. It was, there was times I swear I got taller.
Seriously?
Yeah.
When you're able to get up off the table, right? It's just like, well, oh, I actually feel more vertical now.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Well, I went to a rolfer too, and he zeroed in on my hips, and I literally felt my right leg get longer.
Yeah.
And it seemed that all these years my hips were so off center that my right leg, I guess I was limping all the time.
And we're not aware of it because it's
yeah.
a pattern we get habituated to. We're used
Yeah.
to it. We don't even think about it at that point until something kind of comes in and interrupts it in a functional way.
Well, the funny thing is I look at pictures of myself as a young girl, and it's so obvious in the pictures.
Right.
Like one knee is popped all the time and the other one's straight.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I'd gone to people and they would be like, no, your legs are the same length. It's like something doesn't, So, yeah, so these things I love exploring them because it's, it's helpful and it's healing and it's given me back my life. Hey,
Right.
I'm sitting at a 95-degree angle right here.
Exactly.
90s
Exactly.
maybe. I don't
Ish,
know.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, before I couldn't even. Like I'd be sitting on the floor like this. This is my best angle I got right here. Not a good shot, but
Well, that's fantastic to hear you had
yeah.
such relief from that. And, you know, from my experience too, it really wasn't until I was in school for bodywork that I actually began to receive bodywork fairly regularly. And I go through periods myself. I work on myself all the time. I think the yoga for me is one way of how can I massage my own body out? How can I give people tools to kind of create that sense of mobility themselves? But other times you really need someone to come on in and manually address those areas of restriction. And oftentimes you could be, I've been getting manual therapy myself pretty intensely the last few months for rib thorax stuff. And I'm now suddenly aware of I haven't even been breathing as fully as I could be. And the things that I was initially seeing some of these practitioners for, they're actually zoning in on completely, to me, irrelevant areas. And suddenly I'm surprised, like, oh, I can actually expand my ribs so much more fully now. It's profound, you know.
Taking a deeper breath.
Right. Just as an example, but
So thoracic, like,
yeah, thoracic spine, your
and
ribs.
isn't that like thoracic outlet syndrome, or is that a different?
Well,
type of a
that's one
syndrome?
piece of the structure. I mean,
Okay.
we have our spine, right, and then the thoracic spine is basically from the neck to the base of the ribs, and the ribs
okay.
then wrap around front, connecting to the sternum. The ribs wrap around back to the thoracic spine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Just as an anatomy example.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. The ever important ribs. Let's see here. Where can we go here? I am just like. I think this is an awesome conversation because it's something that I've done so much deep dive into. But you know, you and I have never had a conversation before. We've never sat across from each other. So I feel like I've got like this whole new dictionary and book that I can thumb through. So, so tell me more. Tell me more.
Yeah.
There was something I wanted to go into, and we kept talking, and I lost my thought there. So hopefully, if we just keep going, it'll come back.
Sure.
And
Well,
jump
you
in.
asked me about the bodywork. I started that in 2015. One of my best friends was from Sedona, and him and his mother, they were actually body workers, massage therapists there. I decided in 2014, 2015, I got this vital urge to learn. I was more curious, and the focus was to study kinesiology and anatomy to better inform my yoga instruction and personal practice. I had no desire or pull or even thought to do massage therapy, to do body work, but it just seemed to be a viable and functional trajectory for me to explore in relation to my goal of expanding my yoga practice. And I fell in love with it. I had a private practice for my yoga instruction before entering bodywork school. That first week in school and class, my clients transitioned over there, like, now we want massage. And I was like, well, I have to figure this out, I guess, you know. But it was very informative and surprising and illuminating in many ways, because I never really had that quality of touch, that very therapeutic healing intention in relation to how can we be present with one another. And I think that's ultimately what a lot of this does come down to me. And we can cover that up with all these different trajectories of, massage therapy, shiatsu, manual lymph drainage, craniosacral, acupuncture, etc., right? But it's like, well, how can we really be present with where we're at together, you know, so we feel grounded, so we feel safe in our hearts.
Right. So you triggered me to remember what I was going to talk about.
Perfect.
Yeah, and that would be the intuitive side of this. So you have to feel people's energy in their body. Can you actually feel it from the outside without touching them?
Yes, and I also think that this can be a learned gift. This is an expression of all of our nervous systems in our human body. It's part of our natural senses. In yoga, there's this construct called siddhi, or power. And to me, what I have translated that to in my own experience is, how can you develop a new form of consciousness? And this can be as simple as tuning into different biorhythms in your body. When I first began all of this, I had not developed the sensitivity in my hands that I have now. But as you focus on practicing something functionally, you grow, you expand, you rewire your nervous pathways, just like what you were describing with the alpha resonance. For me, it can be functionally as tuning in not only to specific muscle structures when I touch something. How can I zoom my X-ray hand vision out to the connective tissue, the lymphatic layer? How can I feel that cerebral spinal fluid pulsating through the body? All of these things can be learned. And as you become more subtle and sensitive to these different qualities of tactility, you can then tune into more subtle expressions of that resonance, of energy fields coming out of the body. It feels like magnetism. That's the best way I can describe it. If you play around with holding two magnets together, you can literally tune into that energy between them. And I think the same thing can be established with our hands in relation to how we touch ourselves and how we handle the materium around us too.
Yeah. Well, sometimes people just need that subtle touch, you know. It doesn't have to be
a big feeling.
No, it's just a connection. And one of the things that we had been lacking for the last 4 years has been the human connection. And I'm so happy that we're back being able to touch each other again, you know, not standing 6 feet apart and all of that crazy stuff, because we need each other. Our being collective consciousness isn't just mental, it's physical as well. And when we touch each other and send out our vibrations, they can go far. You know, we can touch people that aren't even in our line of sight.
Seriously, you know? Truly, truly.
So I'm really impressed with you and just love, we have to talk again now that I'm just like scraping the surface of what you do, because I think it's fascinating. And thank you for your service for humanity and all that you do.
I'm so grateful for all of this and for you. And
oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I love learning new things, so this has just been a joyride for me. And I'm seeing we've got just a few seconds left. So do you want to tell the audience that how to get a hold of you for your services?
Yeah, sure. I can be emailed directly at nidrayogipete@gmail.com, NIDRAYOGIPETE@gmail.com.
Perfect.
I don't really use much social media. I don't have a website, but you can contact me there. I will get back to you promptly.
Yeah, and we'll put that on the screen too, so people know how to look you up. So thank you, Pete, for being here. You're absolutely lovely, and you got the most gorgeous eyes.
Thank you. Very kind of you to say.
I'm not shy. Well, I'm going to sign us out. So thank you for keeping it real. Thank you for Pete for being here and being of service to humanity the way he is. We'll see you next time. Bye now.
Bye.